What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and it is time to give you my New Year's Six Bowl projections heading into week number 3 of the 2023 college football season. I gave you my college football playoff projections from yesterday. Now I'm going to give you my New Year's Six Bowl projections heading into the third weekend of the college football season. We don't think we have learned a couple, weeks yet. I mean, I think we've learned a little bit about these teams and a little bit where they're at for right now. But, again, we still haven't learned a whole lot from these teams in the first couple weeks of the college football season. Looking at my New Year's Six Bowl projections this week, I made quite a few changes, but not compared to last week. There's some, that you probably will see the same matchups that I had from last week. But going into this week, I made a few changes, but not quite a lot of changes from these projections from last week. But again, how this video works, I give you pretty much, our main focus is 4 out of the 6 New Year's Six Bowl games that are not playoff semifinal games, because the other 2 New Year's Six Bowl games are playoff semifinal matchups. And I'll give you my playoff, semifinal matchups from yesterday from those projections. Again, you can go back and watch that video if you have not seen it yet. And again, we're just basing this off of how the teams played over the weekend, what we saw from that team, and how well they think we played or how bad we played. So, but let's get right into it here with my New Year's Six Bowl projections here for week number 3 of the 2023 college football season. And we're going to start with my playoff semifinal matchups. This is who I had in the Rose Bowl from yesterday, my playoff projections. In my number 2 versus number 3 matchup, I have Florida State and Michigan. Florida State, I'm still very impressed with them in their win against LSU a couple weeks ago. I think this is probably the best team in the ACC for right now, but there's, a loaded, ACC teams in there that can, still probably beat Florida State. Florida State hasn't, played, anybody that tough. I know LSU was a tough game there for them, but they pulled away in the second half. They're going to get Clemson in about about a week or so. So, I mean, that's going to determine if Florida State's going to be, for real, an ACC championship contender and also still a playoff contender. I think they're still definitely a playoff contender. I mean, after that win against, LSU, they definitely kind of proved to be a playoff contender. So, Florida State here was my number 3 seed, and then I had Michigan at number 2. I still think Michigan is the top, one of those top 2 teams in the country. They're just right behind Georgia in that conversation, but I know their offense hasn't looked that great. But, I think they'll find their offense after this third weekend is complete. I think once they get Jim Harbaugh back at calling the plays, I think Michigan's offense is going to be very explosive like we saw from last year. So, and again, Michigan and Ohio State are both pretty similar. They haven't found their offenses yet in the Big Ten. So this is who I had in the Rose Bowl matchup in the playoff semifinal, the number 2 versus number 3 matchup. And then in my number 1 versus number 4 seed, I had Texas and Georgia here in the Sugar Bowl. Texas, based off of that win against Alabama, they definitely deserve to be here in my playoff spot. I was just very impressed with the defensive line. I think offensively I was very impressed with them, but again, that offense still has a long way to go. But again, after, beating Alabama, an Alabama team by 10 points, and, Alabama losing by double digits at home is really shocking. I mean, it's really very shocking to see Alabama lose by 10. But Texas definitely proved us wrong. They definitely proved us wrong over the weekend. And, again, this defensive line was so dominant. I said, from that, first week, they were not focused on Rice in that game. They were more focused on Alabama, and that's exactly what happened. Texas beat Alabama, and they were ready to play in that game on the road at Tuscaloosa. Georgia, I still think they're the best team in the country. I think, as of right now, I know they haven't looked great on the offense in the first 2 games, but based off of what I've seen so far, their offense, just kind of, gets, in control in the, second half perhaps. So, again, Georgia hasn't played anybody that tough yet, but I just still think this is the most dominant team in the country for right now. But again, things could change as we go into the rest of the college football season. I don't see Georgia losing a game this year because their schedule is really not that tough, and I think they have the easiest path to make it to the playoff this year. So this is my playoff semifinal matchups. Again, you can go back and watch my playoff projections from yesterday and see who I had projected to win the national title as well. So let's now get into the main New Year's Six Bowl games for this, weekend. And we'll start here with the Cotton Bowl. We got Oklahoma and USC. I've been very impressed with the Sooners so far in the first couple games. I mean, they were explosive on offense against Arkansas State, which Arkansas State is not a really good team at all. And then defensively, Oklahoma's defense has looked like it's really turned around. I mean, their defense was not very good last year. It seems like their defense has been a lot better than it was last year, so I've been very impressed with this Oklahoma team, and I'm definitely very impressed with the offense so far as well. I think Dylan Gabriel is going to be a really good quarterback for the whole year for this Oklahoma team. You know, he was out for almost, all of last year, and I think that kind of helped Oklahoma's offense be a little bit more explosive. USC, they've already played 3 games so far. They played a Week 0 game, and, their offense just continues to be explosive in the first 3 games of the year. Their defense has not played like a really tough team yet, but, we're kind of anxious to see USC play like a really good team. They play their first Pac-12 game against Stanford, which Stanford is not a really good team. They're a young team, so, again, I have to see USC play a really good team in order for me to put them in my top 5 as well. But as of right now, I think USC is the top Pac-12 team for right now. But again, here in the Cotton Bowl, I have Oklahoma and USC. This would be a very exciting matchup. You got Lincoln Riley, the former coach at Oklahoma. There would be a lot of storylines going into this game if this game were to happen this weekend. It'll be a very hard game also to predict. So this is Oklahoma and USC here in the Cotton Bowl. I made a change here. Texas was here in the Cotton Bowl for me last week, but now I got Oklahoma here, the second, best Big 12 team as of right now. I know the Big 12 has a lot of other teams, but as of right now, I'm going to go with the Sooners just because they've been so impressive in the first 2 games. All right, moving on to the Fiesta Bowl. No change here. I got Washington and Tulane. Washington, I've been very impressed with their offense. They've been very explosive in the first 2 weeks. Tulane on the other side, I mean, I know they lost to Ole Miss, but I'm not going to penalize Tulane for losing to a good Ole Miss team. They played absolutely great in that game. I think defensively, that's where the concern came from in that game, but offensively, Michael Pratt was out in this game, their star quarterback for this Tulane team, but I thought their backup played pretty well. I thought he made some really good plays down the stretch. A turnover, though, kind of really changed the difference in that game. Other than that, this stays the same. The Fiesta Bowl stays the same between Washington and Tulane. Washington, I think, is the second best team right now in the Pac-12, but the Pac-12 is so loaded with great teams. You got Oregon, you got Washington State, you also got UCLA. The Pac-12 is going to be a crazy conference, and it's right now one of the top conferences in the country. I mean, as of right now, they're the top conference. The Pac-12 was undefeated in week number 1, and then the second week, I think like 3 Pac-12 teams lost over the weekend in week number 2. But again, this Pac-12 conference is going to be a very explosive conference this year. And also a dogfight. I think all these teams are going to beat up on each other, and we'll see what happens when they get into Pac-12 play. But Washington, no change here for me in the Fiesta Bowl, and same thing with Tulane. Like I said, I'm not going to penalize Tulane for losing to a great Ole Miss team. So this is my Fiesta Bowl matchup. This is who I had in week number 2. All right, moving on to the Peach Bowl. I made a one change here in this one. I got Penn State here in the Peach Bowl. Penn State was here last week for me. I've still been very impressed with their offense and their defense so far in the first couple weeks. Notre Dame on the other side, they're new here to my Peach Bowl. Last week I had LSU, but based off of what I've seen so far from Notre Dame, their offense has just been very, very explosive. Sam Hartman looks like the same kind of Sam Hartman that we saw at Wake Forest. And again, both sides of the football for the Irish are just really unbelievable. They dominated that game against NC State this past weekend. That game, was in a lightning delay and also a rain delay for almost like maybe 2 hours, I believe. And they just came out there and, dominated for the rest of the way. I know NC State's not a ranked team, but it was still an impressive win for Notre Dame. And based off of what I've seen in the first 3 weeks for Notre Dame, their offense just really is clicking. But we're going to find out if Notre Dame is a playoff, contender when they play against Ohio State in week number 4 on September the 23rd. Again, that game is going to kind of determine if Notre Dame is a playoff contender or not. Penn State on the other side, I think they've been the best offense so far in the Big Ten because the Big Ten hasn't been really that great in the first 2 weeks. Again, offensively, some teams are still finding their offenses. And, again, the Big Ten overall in general just hasn't been really that good in the first couple weeks. But again, I've just been very impressed with this Penn State team. And again, you're not going to see Ohio State here in this video because I'm just not really impressed with the Buckeyes so far. They only scored 35 points against Youngstown State. That was not enough for me to put them here in a New Year's Six Bowl. So this is my Peach Bowl matchup. Again, I made one change here. I had LSU here last week. But again, based off of what I've seen from the Irish so far, I think this is going to be a really good Notre Dame team for the rest of the year. And then Penn State and Notre Dame, again, the Peach Bowl matchup. Let's now go to my last New Year's Six Bowl matchup here for my New Year's Six Bowl projections. And in the Orange Bowl, we got Tennessee and North Carolina. No change here either from last week. I know Tennessee and North Carolina didn't play well against their non-conference matchups this past weekend. Tennessee was definitely flat-footed against, Austin Peay. They did not perform well in that game. Same thing with North Carolina. They were not, well against, Appalachian State. So I could have made a change here. I probably could have put Alabama and, Miami here in the Orange Bowl. But I'm not going to penalize Tennessee for playing that badly against Austin Peay. I still think this is a really good Tennessee team. Maybe they were focused on Florida, which they'll play them tomorrow. So maybe they were focused on them and not focused on Austin Peay. But, there were so many chances for Tennessee to score in this game. They could have at least, scored like 50-some points. Joe Milton missed a lot of throws down the field, which I don't think it was Milton's fault. I think, his receivers just couldn't catch his, fastball and everything. So North Carolina, they survived a double overtime game against Appalachian State, so both of these teams were kind of similar, but Tennessee had the better win against, Austin Peay. So I'm going to keep my Orange Bowl here as it stands, Tennessee and North Carolina, but if these two teams kind of have bad performances over the weekend, I think I might switch it up. But, this is as it stands right now in the Orange Bowl. And those are my New Year's Six Bowl projections for week number 3 of the 2023 college football season. And we'll see what happens, tomorrow with all these games coming up tomorrow and see if something changes here in the next few weeks. But again, we have to learn more about these teams as we head into about, the rest of the couple weeks here. We're going to learn about more of these teams maybe by the 4th or 5th week of the college football season. But give me your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think about these New Year's Six Bowl projections? Let me know down in the comments below, and also give me your New Year's Six Bowl projections as well. And stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports Channel.